Welcome, viewers, to Political Scope. My name is Stacey Carmichael James, and today I'm joined by the Honorable Dr. Leslie Ramsamy, Minister of Agriculture. We will be discussing developments in the agriculture sector for 2014. Minister, it's nice to have you on the program today.
It's nice to be here, Stacey.
Great. Today, I want to discuss with you some of the achievements in the agriculture sector for 2014. Your
And I
opening
think
remarks.
we could start off by saying that I know the Minister of Finance will soon announce that Guyana has had 9 consecutive years of growth, because we would be averaging some 4.6% growth this year in 2014, which would make it 9 straight years of economic growth. And of course, whenever you have economic growth, there is also social development. But leading the way in this 9th consecutive year of economic growth is, in fact, agriculture. Agriculture has been a significant part of the economic growth story of Guyana. And indeed, subtract agriculture, Guyana would have a tough time in terms of economic growth. I do know that whatever the final figure for economic growth of 2014 is, that agriculture will in fact have a higher average. And so I expect that Guyana's growth in terms of the agriculture sector in 2014 will be greater than 5%. And so we once again will be leading the various sector in pointing Guyana in a trajectory of upward growth in our economy. So that's good news. And unlike many other years, that economic growth will see growth in every subsector of the agriculture sector, whether we are dealing with rice, sugar, or fish, or traditional, non-traditional crops, the cash crops, as a matter of fact. In terms of the cattle industry, you see significant increases, but I'm sure we will talk about those details. So agriculture is presently ahead of the growth curve. Agriculture this year will contribute almost $500 million US to, in terms of export earnings, and rice will lead the way. I think rice export earnings will be more than $250 million this year, US dollars. The cattle industry and cash crop industry, indeed the cash crop industry in 2014 would see sales abroad, export of more than 13 million kilograms, or about over 13,000 tons. And that, if we look back to 2013, we would have, at about September of this year, surpassed the overall total for 2013. So we see growth in every area of agriculture.
Okay, that is great. Notwithstanding the benefits and some of the achievements, could you state for us what were some of the challenges in the various sectors?
One of the major requirements for agriculture, whether we're dealing with a rich country like America or a developing country like Guyana, is always to develop your infrastructure. And because of the weather patterns in Guyana, you're always dealing with drainage and irrigation. And I'm not dealing with residential area, though we help in that. But draining agriculture areas and providing irrigation water is critical to agriculture development. Clearly, we have been able to grow agriculture Because if we compare agriculture today to agriculture, say, 1990, we are almost 1,000% above it. And that's because we have invested in the infrastructure. This year, we would have added some 1,200 cusack to the pumping capacity of Guyana. What that means is some 30 million gallons of water are pumped every hour in Guyana. Um, Indeed, that's a lot of additional capacity that we have provided. I think people need to bear this in mind, that pumping in terms of drainage has always been critical. And we've had it going back to the 1930s with Guy Succo, and we have developed it. By 1964, Guyana had a pumping capacity of some 7,000 cusack. And by 1990, it had dropped to below 4,000 cusack. And even though some of those pump stations were there, they were not working optimally. At the end of 2014, we would have some 11,000 cusack. Um, and if we were to add that together, it means some 20 billion gallons of water um, per day is being pumped whenever we have the need to. So we have substantially increased. So if we go back to 1990, where we were only about 4,000 cusack, we now have, as I said, over 11,000 cusack. And that means that we have more than double the pumping capacity. And this year, we perhaps had the single largest increase in terms of an annual increase, because we've added some 1,200 cusack to a total capacity of about 11,000, which means that almost 10% additional capacity exists. And even as we speak, there are 4 stations being constructed, which means in the first quarter of next year, we should add another 1,000 cusack to the overall capacity. This is an important area for us, particularly given the unpredictability of the weather, climate change, and global warming. And we're going to deal with more frequent occurrence of high intensity rainfall that would cause flood. And we will also have to deal at the same time with more frequent occurrences of long dry periods that will necessitate pumping of water into the fields through irrigation systems. So this is one of the area that remains a constraint, and that we have been addressing, and I'm really grateful that we are making such significant advances. There are other areas, the sluice system. I am glad that as we speak, the Hope Canal is taking shape in terms of operationalization. We have completed the head regulator, we've completed the bridge, we have essentially completed the canal. We are nearly at the end of completing the outer sluice, which just 6 months ago didn't look like we are going to get it done. But I am really thankful that the contractor has really made a major effort, and we have increased that. That sluice system, because one sluice gives you a greater capacity for drainage than a huge pump. And so that is a critical occurrence for us. But there are other sluice systems around the country that we are building. So these infrastructure things are very important. This coming year, in 2015. In 2014, we made significant advances in designing and bringing to fruition the Cunha Canal on the East Bank. This will be one of the GRIF projects. Many people have heard about the Conservancy Adaptation Program. We will see 4 new pump stations added on the East Coast. So Ogle, for example, I know would have another pump station, Plaisance. So there'll be a at least a minimum of 800 cubic pumping capacity added on the East Coast through the Conservancy Adaptation Program. So we are focusing a lot on the infrastructure to improve agriculture in our country. And that's just a glimpse because I don't want to spend all our time talking about um, the infrastructure and the constraints, but we are addressing the constraints every single day in Guyana. Perhaps in this, one of the constraints that people do look at is so we are growing more, we're producing more, and we are a small country. Um, we can't eat all the rice that we produce. We can't eat all the bora and the belange and the pumpkin that we produce. And indeed, Guyana has a capacity to easily scale up our production, but we can't eat all this food. So what do we do with it? We have to find markets. As we speak, I know that there is a boat loading rice to go to destinations that just a year ago did not exist. And so in you'll recall that in September I was in Panama and we signed a deal with the Panamanian government. In this short period, Panama has become our number 2 export destination for rice. And that's the kind of things we are doing to overcome the constraint. Just before I came here, I was with the Trinidadians and we were talking about the sanitary and phytosanitary standards for our produce to come, to go to Trinidad and Tobago. We have probably produced this year more plantains than we have ever done before in our history. We are planting more of the various cash crops because some of it are beginning to appear on tables and in kitchens in Trinidad and Tobago, in Barbados, in the Dominican Republic, in North America, in Europe, etc. So market remains a constraint. But that's how we are developing agriculture as a value chain where we are focusing on market. And indeed, we are about to establish at the ministry what we call a trade facilitation unit so that people can come one place, get advice, and all of their paperwork done without having to run to Monrepo, run different parts of Georgetown, etc. The trade facilitation unit staff will ensure that it's a one-stop shop so that we could export our products more. And by the way, if all the ships are in line, we should be exporting 500,000 tons of rice for 2014. Just think about it. In 1990, we exported 50,000 tons of rice. And in 2014, not so long ago, we are now exporting 500,000 tons. I do recall that when I was made Minister of Agriculture, people said that that's an impossible target for production. Because I recall that we had reached for the first time in our history a production of 400,000 tons in 2011. And people told me that reaching 500,000 will never happen. Well, actually, we have reached 633,000 tons this year, and we will reach 500,000 tons in export this year. So we're exporting more than people thought was possible ever. And so that gives you an indication of how agriculture is growing. And I'm happy to say too that sugar presently is about 10% um, greater than it was last year. And we are kind of at arm's length away from the 2014 target. So while sugar continues to have major issue, we are reaching a target, which is our first milestone, was to be able to set a target and achieve it. This year, we will do that. So I think all in all, we have constraints, but we are facing them, and we are turning the constraints into opportunity. So suddenly everybody wants products from us, and that then drives agriculture among the farmers, etc. I think this year at Guy Expo, I'm sure you saw that where in collaboration with Minister Fanali, we're doing a value-added factory in Essequibo for Rice Krispies, turning rice into another product that could be used here so that our consumption locally increase, because in addition to eating rice as a food, we could eat rice in another form, as Krispies, cereal, and
Snack,
so on. But it creates another kind of job for our people, because in Essequibo, all our CXC graduates and so, and college graduates can go back because there's a different kind of jobs outside of the field: factory maintenance, factory management, marketing, etc. And as you and I are talking here, the staff is busy setting up a turnkey operation for a high quality cassava flour that will see increased demand for cassava and plantain and arrows. Because if we could make high quality flour, then we can blend our wheaten flour. We don't have to import as much wheat. We'll have a more nutritious flour, but a blended flour could also be an exportable product for people in the diaspora, etc. So this is how we are developing agriculture. We should all be excited.
Yes. Well, Minister, you touched on the value-added products. You touched on the part of the manufacturing sector. What about the non-traditional sectors? What are some of the areas that you'll be focusing on in the near future?
Now, Guyana's agriculture, as you know, is sugar and rice. We've always produced enough of the non-traditional crops to meet our needs, but our potential is far higher, because we could supply all of Barbados with and the Caribbean with fresh produce that they need. Um, Things like pumpkin, butternut, squash, pepper, etc. But in addition to these things, provisions, cassava, arrows, etc., Guyana and the Caribbean import large amounts of things. So our import bill in Guyana and the Caribbean is among the highest in the world. And I could understand some of the Caribbean countries. They don't have the land, they don't have the water resources, but not Guyana. The global average for food import, when you take the whole world together, is about 70 US dollars per person per year. In Guyana, it's about $200 per year. And in the Caribbean, it's over $800 per year. But that represents an opportunity. One, if we could reduce our own food import by producing some of the things we import, for example, potato, whether it's Irish potato or white potato, whatever we call it. And potato is a staple in our country. And no use we talk about banning it. We did that before in Ghana. You were too young, but I went through that period, your parents would know that we at one time banned things. That doesn't work. Why do you want to ban it? Potato is an important part of our diet and our how we eat in Guyana. So why not produce it? As the colonial masters told us that we can't grow it, as they wanted us to buy it from them. Now we can grow it, and one of the great achievements I think for Guyana is we now have done the research and we know we can grow potato. So I'm hoping that by 2020 we would have reduced potato importation by at least a quarter, if not more. I have eaten potato grown in Guyana, and there is no difference between what we buy and what we have. But if we produce it ourselves, it will be cheaper. It will create jobs. It will create opportunities for our farmers. Broccoli and cauliflower. At one time, that was known as the bourgeois food, where the rich people went to the so-called bourgeois supermarket. Now you can find broccoli and cauliflower in all the corner supermarkets, in all the community markets, etc., because we grow it ourselves. We do not import any broccoli or cauliflower. Again, providing opportunities for farmers, diversifying what they produce. Carrots. We have some of the nicest looking carrots in Guyana we produce, and I'm hoping that by 2020 we do not import any carrots. And those things have become very popular in Guyana. You can't really go into a kitchen now and look at food and see you don't have these things, particularly since as Minister of Health before and the present Minister, we have been promoting proper diet, healthy diet. Your plate must look like a rainbow. But we imported those things that made our plate look like a rainbow. Now we can grow them. Ginger, black pepper, turmeric. And now that I'm more knowledgeable, I ask myself, why were we importing these things all along? Because they're easy to grow. We can process them. We have some constraints with it. Take turmeric. It has become a popular crop in Region 1. But for them to send the fruit to Georgetown where it's processed, it's too expensive, the transportation cost. And so what we have done is we have procured equipment to semi-process the turmeric in Region 1. And so if you semi-process it, you reduce 8 pounds to 1 pound. And so the transportation cost is reduced by 7/8. These are the kinds of innovation that we bring. And that's how the non-traditional crops, both the ones that we're used to growing and the newer ones, are now taking hold. And so I hope that this is something that we become very nationalistic about. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with region. It has nothing to do what race or ethnicity we are, what religion. We should be nationalistic. And that doesn't mean that we should ban anything, but I should look to see, I should want to buy Guyana potato. But I say that because I want to make this point, that Guyanese producers, our farmers in particular, should not think that because we grow it, people must buy it no matter what the quality. I think we have to focus on producing safe, nutritious, high quality food. And that's what we are doing. So that I could say that our food is safe, it is nutritious, it is good quality, and therefore I prefer a Guyanese product. That's what we are doing right now.
Okay, thank you, Minister. That is some very good news. Of course, we know that turmeric has a lot of value. What about the livestock sector, that aspect of
Yes.
agriculture? We can't forget that.
And you know, poultry, we have become self-sufficient, both in terms of meat and table eggs. In terms of meat this year, we should exceed 30 million kilograms of poultry meat. That's how much we eat. That's how much chicken we eat. Um, 30 million, which means that per capita, we're about 40 kilogram in Guyana, which is fairly high in comparison to other parts of the world. The For eggs, we produce some 50 million tabletop eggs, baking, eating, etc. So we are self-sufficient. We don't need to import. And you will notice that a few years ago, every time Christmas comes around, there's always a noise. Shortage of chicken, um, price skyrocketing. And recently, you haven't been seeing too much noise because we are self-sufficient. In terms of beef, we are meeting the local demands. This year, we should exceed more than 1,000 tons for the local market. Pork, when I became minister, my challenge was that the pork price had skyrocketed because there was a shortage on the local market. And I have a dilemma because you see, we are both the producers and the consumers. With our producer hat, we want the highest price. With our consumer hat, we want the lowest price. And when you are both the producer and consumer, what is the balance? And so in 2012, I was bombarded by consumers that the price is too high. And in 2014, I'm now bombarded by the producers who say the price is too low because the production has increased. We produce about 1,000 tons of pork for the local market. We continue to produce about 300 tons of small ruminant meat. This is mutton and goat meat. One of my abiding concern, enduring concern, is milk. And whilst we produce some, I guess, 50 million liters of milk, it's not enough to meet our local demands. And so we import a lot of milk. About 80% of the milk we use in Guyana are actually imported. And I believe that we can eliminate that need. It will take time. And so this year we have begun putting together a dairy program. So we have imported some animals that are improved genetics so that they produce more milk, and trying to improve the local stock so that our milk producing animals are giving us higher yield. We are preparing 5,000 acres of dairy land in Region 5. We've got some 300 farmers that are interested, and we have put together some private investors to put up a dairy plant to produce pasteurized milk and cheese, and hopefully later yogurt and ice cream. I am glad to see that Sterling Products is expanding their dairy commodities and showing an interest in producing these products. And I would encourage Guyanese to utilize these products. The Sterling product yogurt is as good as any yogurt that you can buy. So why Yoplait? Why not the Sterling product yogurt? We have to develop some brand in Guyana, and we have to develop some loyalty to our brands. And when you do that, you will also have the other side of the equation, the production increase, employment, business opportunities, and so increase. So I am very optimistic in terms of the cattle industry, the meat and milk industry.
Okay, Minister. Now, as we wrap up the program, could you quickly tell us what are some of the projections or what are some of your expectations for 2015?
One of the top things for 2015 is that we keep the sugar industry going on an upward direction. So whilst it was a modest target this year of 216,000 tons, I expect a stiffer target for 2015, and I am extremely optimistic that sugar will again um, earn its place as the number one agriculture product in our country. I have no doubt that rice will continue to create new records in our country. Um, in 2015, I expect some infrastructure to begin to increase land availability. It's a strength that Guyana has. No Caribbean country has more or significant amount of land to put to agriculture. Guyana does. And with the European Union project in Region 5, damming the Maikoni River, we should have about 200,000 acres of new land. 2015, I expect Aurora to further develop and create 5,000 acres of new land in Region 2. I expect Kanji Basin to come in. 2015, I expect our first commercial crops of soya and corn because I am determined that by 2020, Guyana should meet our corn and soya demand at least by 25%, um, producing in Ibini, etc. And I'm expecting in 2015 that the first acreage of palm oil plants in the Kanji Basin would also be established. I expect a high quality slaughterhouse and abattoir to be built in 2015. And you know, Guyana is already foot and mouth free in terms of diseases in our animals, and I expect that we will have major development in ensuring that we are brucellosis free. And one last point, we have many things to talk about, but one last point is that shark has been an important part of our fishing industry. We export significant amount of shark fins, but shark, the kind that we have in Guyana, has been placed on the CITES um, endangered species, and which means that Guyana will have to put a shark management plan in place and certify those who are catching sharks. We have to certify those who are producing the fins, or it would not be exportable. And so this is the first signal I'm giving to people that unless we put the shark management plan together, we will not be able to export shark anymore. So I've chosen this occasion to actually put people, um, give them a signal that things will get tougher for us to be able to export shark fin. But the industry does not have to close. We could continue to export. We have to do certain things. So if you think you will catch shark and not register with us, you will not be able to export.
Arden, thank you so much for joining us on the program today, Minister Ramsamy. And thank you very much, viewers, for staying tuned with us. It was Political Scope, and we examined the agriculture sector and its achievements for 2014 and some projections for 2015. My name is Stacey Carmichael James, saying goodbye.